Hello everybody, welcome to Talks with Adri. We already have the first episode about the origin of the universe, the second one about how does it work, and this third one is what is outside. So today we're going to talk about what science says about the life outside of our planet, what does the ancient civilization believe, and how do they contact these beings from the stars, and what are the messages that we have recently received from other beings, from extraterrestrials, basically beings that are not from Mother Earth. All right, so let's start. With this, I want to say that I don't want to persuade you about anything that I'm going to say here. Basically, the idea is that you open your mind and that you analyze different perspectives, and then you will build your own truth, because there is not only one. One thing that science tells us is that the universe is so big, it is so huge. It is 90 billion light years in diameter, what we can see right now. And the farthest that we can see is Andromeda, which is the galaxy that is right next door. We are in the Milky Way. We can call it our neighborhood. And here there are 100 billion galaxies, and each of them with between 100 to 1,000 billion of stars. So there are plenty of suns and a lot of possibility of life to be out there. So let's concentrate basically in the Milky Way, which is where we can see. In the Milky Way, there are 400 billion stars. And if only 0.1% of possibility of having an inhabitable planet out there, we're going to talk about 1 million possibilities. 1 million planets out there have the possibility of having life. So even though science don't recognize that there is life out there, they haven't proved it, what they say is that the probability is very, very high. Also, since the Big Bang happened, until our planet or until the Milky Way was created, many other beings were before. Other planets or the stars. The Milky Way is relatively new or young. It's only 30 billion years. So it could have been life previously that had disappeared already and that we were never aware of. Science is going to say that there is a theory called Fermi paradox, and it is called the theory of the great filters. Why? Because they say that first, the origin of life is very difficult because it depends on the environment, temperature, weather, and the possibility of life itself to be able to evolve and grow and everything. There is one theory that says, okay, we as humans and the environment that you see here, the conditions are only in this planet, and we are unique and we are a very evolved and intelligent species. And that makes us so special because we are the only ones who have been able to evolve and developed a civilization. But because of all these circumstances that are required to have life, there is a great filter, and the other planets have not reached there yet or haven't been able to pass this filter. So this is the first theory. The other theory of the Fermi paradox, the other possibility, is that maybe many develop the civilization or beings that are intelligent and that are looking for energy and all this, but there is a great filter above us and we still have not reached it. And all the civilizations and all the other beings that have reached that have already disappeared. Perhaps that can happen to us if we continue in the same way that we have developed up to now. Because if we understand our human history, it has been more like a conflict and war. And all what we have been done to our environment is taking us to our destruction. So perhaps this had happened to other civilizations before, and that's why we haven't seen the aliens around. Let's see. That so-called intelligence that we think, sometimes being very arrogant, is taking us to our own destruction. Meanwhile, we see the other species, here at least in Mother Earth, that are evolving and creating new life. But let's see. So, in conclusion, for the science, we can say that there is not life that we have already discovered yet, but the probability for it to exist, it is very, very high. I will say that we are trying to see something, to perceive something with our senses. What the NASA is trying to do is reach radio frequencies to listen to extraterrestrials, or they want to land on Mars and see another being and maybe being able to communicate with them. But what I believe is that there is another way, another possibility to communicate with them, as did our ancestors in ancient civilizations. And it is not through going there necessarily. It is tapping into our heart and embracing our frequency. Our body is the machine that we need. We don't need to go into spacecrafts and all that. Maybe going within ourselves is the way that we can tap into different dimensions, into higher realities. What I'm going to explain here, it is not based on science or facts, but there are many written books of people that have channeled, and like Edgar Cayce, like Diana Cooper, like many other beings that are talking right now, because the more that humanity raises the frequency, more people are able to be tapping into this knowledge or into these things that are in a way similar of how the ancient civilizations did. And we have plenty of information of how the beings outside our universe work. And that is what I'm going to explain right now. Okay, in order to start, I will need that you remember that from the previous episode, when we explained how the universe works, we went into this graphic that we have here, and it is that our sun moves around the Pleiades. Why this is important? Because we really depend on our solar system. For us, the biggest star and the one that gives us life is the sun. So we are definitely aligned with the sun in order to live. It's what gives us life. And the sun takes a 26,000 year cycle going around the Pleiades. So the sun depends on this 7-star cluster for his own life. He is dependent on that. So the influence of the Pleiades on the sun is very big. Is the magnetism, is his own center, in the same way that for us our center is the sun. At the same time, the Pleiades had another center. This center is called the Great Central Sun. And this Great Central Sun, apparently, it's a belt made of photons, and they also rotate around it. All these Pleiades, all these 7 stars. So these beings are going to influence our reality and our creation. The Great Central Sun is something that it is far away from our understanding, something that we are not going to be able to consider. It doesn't fit in our minds, but it is a being, a consciousness, that it is from the 9th, that goes from the 9th dimension to the 12th dimension. So it is not possible to see it or to perceive it in the 3rd dimension that we live. And it is a very intelligent, evolved consciousness, and from it emanates everything that you see in the known and in the unknown universe for us. So out of him, out of this central sun, beings or forces came out. The hierarchy of the stars is very complicated, but I'm going to try to simplify it, even though I don't have its whole understanding, but according to different books and to different people that have channeled, this is what I understood. So we have, for example, the Seraphims, the Seraphim, the Elohims, the Archangels, and the Angels. So these are the beings of light. And additionally to these beings of light that are not matter, let's say that there are forces of their energy, there are others that are more similar to us, that are our brothers, that also come out from these beings. So from the central sun came out the Seraphim, which are the 12th dimension beings. In the Bible, it's written, or they are depicted, for example, in the Renaissance, with 3 wings and covering their eyes with the wings because they couldn't stand the reflection or the radiance of God, of the unity. Just to give you an example. And they move There are consciousness that move slowly because they give, with their singing, with their sound, they give like the order or the movement to all the other forces. Here we still don't have planets or stars because they are just etheric in a very, very, very high frequency. For example, Seraphina, according to Diana Cooper, there are 144 Seraphim. And one, it is for Mother Earth, that is called Seraphina. And she's working hard, raising the consciousness, because the Seraphim are in charge of giving us faith and love. Especially faith on reaching back to the unity. But as they are so high in frequency, for us it's very difficult to tap with their energy. Unless we ask it, because we have always a free will. And if we ask for it, we are going to be able to sense it. The other beings are the Elohims. The Elohims are in the 6th dimension. We can call them the architects of the universe. What they do, they are like spheres. They are the spheres that are built with this seed of life. Remember the 6 circles that we explained in the first episode? Well, those are the Seraphims. And out of them come all the geometrical forces, all the light, all the sound, all the vibration, all the magnetism that it is required in order to produce planets and things. But basically, they are still in the etheric world. They don't bring up matter, but they made all the design. We can say it like that. They made all the design, like the architects. And then the archangels could be the engineerings, the ones that are really going to bring up into matter all what the Elohims created or designed. Later, the archangels have greater, very big tasks. So they use the sacred geometry with spirals, throwing, moving around. They are present everywhere, omnipresent. They have big tasks, and especially for humanity, we know the archangels, they are divided according to the race. So we have 7 days a week, we have 7 archangels. There are many archangels, but at least 7 important archangels that works with the centers of our chakras in each of the frequencies, trying to raise up the frequency in order for us to grow up in consciousness. The archangels are greater comforters for humans. They are not only our friends, but we can feel it, they are even closer. And they have important tasks for humanity, and they are going to be, they can use our nature, they can use the elements in order to help us in this global raising consciousness. We can say that they work in different dimensions, because they work in our 3rd dimension, they work in the 2nd dimension, they are going to be working in different dimensions, but in order to communicate with them, we have to raise ourselves in the frequency of the 5th dimension, from the heart. How does the frequencies work? This is important in order to understand how to communicate with angels and with spiritual guides. Most of humans vibrate in the lower frequency chakras. The root chakra starts in 369 hertz. So that is a lower vibration, very terrestrial or very attached to the 3rd dimension. And the more that you grow spiritually, the more that if you are a good person, if you have an open heart, your frequency is going to raise up. The more compassionate that you are, then you're going to start raising your vibration to the 5th dimension, which is 528 hertz. From this dimension, our intuition develops a lot, and we are able to maybe listen or feel or see our spiritual guides. Many people have said, I've just heard a voice, or I had a dream and I saw this and that, or my intuition says, because I just have the feeling of. So this is exactly what our archangels and angels do with us. They communicate with us through thoughts, through dreams, maybe through signs, maybe through another person that comes and tells us a message. But they can only interfere or talk to us if we have asked them for, because there is the free will. So it's only if you want their help. If you haven't requested, it is very difficult. Or in the cases that you are in high risk of losing your life, like in very important things, when you are completely moving out of your purpose, of your path, they are going to intervene. For example, if somebody is going to die and it's not its moment, okay, maybe they are going to do something. The angels are the most closer beings, the one that we more know, and that's why there is more literature about them, because most of the people have felt their presence next to them. They are also great comforters. They are beings of extreme love, of unconditional love, that they decided to be with us, and not only in this reincarnation, but in all the reincarnations. It is a company of your soul, a being that knows you better than anybody else, and it's always with you. So they are extraterrestrials because they don't have a body. An angel doesn't have like eyes or mouth or hands or something like us, because they are not matter, they are energy. They exist in a parallel reality with us at the same time. And they communicate with us through thoughts, through feelings. They also have vibrations in these realms. So the higher your vibration, the higher the vibration is going to be of your spiritual guide, of your guardian angel. Because they feed themselves with love, with peace, and the opposite. If you start feeding yourself with negative emotions, then you're going to attract entities, which are not angels, but low vibrational beings that are also going to be fed by your lies or your depression or many other things. And the more that you feel in this way, the more powerful they become. But they don't want to kill you, because if you're done, then they also can't continue feeding themselves. So they need you in a bad state, but alive. Here in this world of duality, we see them like good and bad, right? Like the good ones and the evil ones. But outside in the space, or like in other dimensions, there is not the duality. Actually, they cooperate. Sometimes with when our guardian angel just whisper into our ears, maybe this is not the correct path, go back to your purpose. And maybe they also touch us, and maybe they just talk to a friend, the friend come to us and tell us the message, and we continue not listening. It is very possible that they go to the opposite forces, and they are going to be happy to help, pushing us in a more strict way to come back to our path. For example, with an illness or with an accident or somebody that is really shocking, because at the end we need to evolve. If there is no change, there is no evolution. So that is how the spiritual world works. Every time that we go opposed to our center, to our unity, we need to go back. So there is going to be one force that gets closer, the other force that gets closer, in order to go back. And that is basically what our spiritual guides do. The hierarchy is much more complicated than I'm explaining here, but I try just to simplify it. Actually, I don't have the whole understanding of it, but for you to have a picture of other things, beings of light that are out there. For example, in the Bible, in Colossians 1:16, it says, "For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions," other beings, celestial beings that I'm not touching here, but are like in the hierarchy of the angels, "or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him." So here we see that even the Bible mentions that there are a lot of other beings that are out there that are beyond our forces of our power, and that contribute with our creation, with our reality. So that's why I put here the central sun, because out of him all the things known and unknown in the universe comes from him. And all this is in the etherical plane, not still in the material plane. Okay, so now focus into our earth, into the human reality. We have here the great central sun that produced the Seraphims, the Elohims, and the archangels. One of the archangels is Archangel Metatron. Archangel Metatron, with his opposite divine force, which is Shekinah, the female force from Orion's constellation, because it's where the place, but remember that there is no places because there is no space, but let's say it's like the etherical realm of Archangel Metatron, Orion constellation. He's going to send the rays, the spirals, all the sacred geometry in order to create. And from here, with also using the force of the elements, being the elements also beings, he's going to create the stars, the planets, and this is what we call the creating forces. This is according to Diana Cooper, which is similar to all the ancient civilizations that we explained in the previous class, in the origin of the universe. So we have one unity with opposite forces that give birth to two opposite forces, and out of this duality comes all the universe. So after the solar system was created, thanks to Metatron and the sacred geometry, it was needed to have some administrative councils. And then we're going to have the Galactic Council, the Galactic Council of 12. This is for humanity, for our planet, for the planet Earth. In this Galactic Council, we're going to have the following members: Master Marco, Commander Ashtar, Lord Hilarion, Saint Germain, Jesus, or now called Lord Sananda, Kuan Yin, Lord Kutumi, El Moria, Serapia's Bay, Paul the Venetian, Mary Magdalene, and Lord Maitreya. So if you see, maybe you have heard any of these beings, ascended masters. The ascended masters had reincarnated on Earth many times with different civilizations. For example, just Saint Germain, he was Saint Germain in France, but he was also Paul, one of Jesus' apostles. So we're going to see that many of them come to help humanity to raise their consciousness. We have 7 that we know, because each of them are working with the archangels and with the angels in the 7 rays of our chakras. But there are 12. When we are able to pass to the 5th dimension, and when we're able to raise our vibration, we're going to activate 12 chakras. We're not going to stay in 7 chakras. So we're going to be able to download different energies that raise up our conscious, that help us with the evolution. So this I'm going to explain through all these episodes, but just to give you a brief of how to communicate with the council. These are ethereal beings, but as we know, the ascended masters have come down to earth to help us. And we also have other beings that we can call our brothers. Brothers, because they are also in different planets or stars, for example, such as the Pleiades, such as the galaxy of Andromeda, such as the Actuarians, and such as the beings from Sirius. These beings and many others had helped to build our human footprint. They have contributed genetically. They have put their DNA. So let's say that in our blood, in our biological system, we have the information and the evolution of these beings as well. These we're going to explain it later in the human experiment, and how in the next episode where we're going to talk about where does the human come from. But let's say that they are our brothers. They are our cosmic brothers as well, because they also come from the energy of the great central sun, and they were also created. Their planets and their stars were also created by the archangels, by the Archangel Metatron in the constellation of Orion, which is one of the most ancient ones in our Milky Way. Just to give you a glance of where they're located, here we have Orion's belt. Orion's belt. Here is Canis Minor, and here we have Canis Major, and the nose is Sirius, this other one. Here we also have Orion, and here it's a very important constellation that is Taurus. And Taurus, here we're going to have the Pleiades, okay? The group of these 7 stars that are located at the Taurus constellation. All right, so who are the Pleiadians? The Pleiadians obviously come from these 7 stars, from this cluster of stars. People say that they look like their eyes are blue and they look like a lot of galaxies inside, and the hair is yellow, but more than being blonde, it is more light. It is light that comes out instead of hair. And they are basically our spiritual guides. They are in charge of bringing humanity to a different level of consciousness. They have been in Mother Earth many times. They have been in Atlantis. Right now, they're helping us a lot. They have talked to some governments here in order to exchange technology. They are working with the medicine, with the scientists, helping them to develop the medicine into a more holistic way of seeing the individuals, like multidimensional beings as we are, not only physical. So the Pleiadians are helpers. We can say that they bring heaven to earth. They can work in the ethereal and they can also work with the matter. So we can say that the Pleiades is like our portal, is the portal for the beings to become spiritual or to change the matter to energy. That's why the Pleiades are so important and have been so important for all the previous civilizations. Remember that our sun, the magnetic center of the sun, is the Pleiades. So arrive to Pleiades or understand them. Get in contact with these beings is something very important for humanity or for humans in order for the ascension, for the transformation, for the transmutation, for the evolution. They travel in something that is called the Merkaba. The Merkaba is a light vehicle. Is when you're able to master your own energy to be faster than the speed of light. And they know how to move their energy in spiral, but more than spiral, it's like a toroidal way of moving the energy. And it looks outside like a sphere because our eyes cannot really, and our cameras can't catch something that is faster than light. So it looks like a sphere when they travel and they move. They have been recorded in cameras. They have a very big difference with the humans, and it is that they are not from the 3rd dimension. So they are not going to have organs, reproductive system like we have. They reproduce in different ways. Basically, we can communicate with them through thoughts and through dreams. And we can ask their assistance, for example, that they come with the electric light, that they come out through the electronics, that they come out with the healing equipment, everything that has to do with the medicine, because that is the task that they have. That is the way that they can help humanity to raise our consciousness. Now we're going to have the Actuarians. The Actuarians work together with the Pleiadians. The Actuarians are like you see here. They have like an elongated skull. They have also big eyes, and their eyes are going to also look like galaxies, and their skin is like bluish. They have races. They have black, like in the same, like humans. We have different types of color of the skin, but our blood is always red. In their planet there is no oxygen. Their blood is not red, it's bluish, and that's why they're going to be always depicted like that. They have also come several times to Mother Earth, and they are going to be the scientists. So in a way, like the Pleiadians are like the healers and the spiritual, they're going to be more the scientists going to the biology. They work with the DNA, and they do have reproductive systems. So when they came to Earth, what they did was that they mixed with the existed humans in order to develop this new race or this new species. And in the previous civilizations, they are going to be considered gods, and they were so respected, so wise, that this old way of saying that the royal blood is blue comes from when the Actuarians came here to Earth, because they were so respected. They were kings, they were considered gods. And we're going to see, for example, with Lord Shiva, with Osiris, that had this color in the different deities of different civilizations. And then we're going to have the Reptilians. The Reptilians came to Earth and they helped us to adapt the knowledge of how to take the Kundalini, how to raise up our energy from the lower chakras up through all our spine and then fly. Basically, to also cross that portal of the spirituality. That's why they call it the snake, and the snake passes through all our chakras, reaching out the different consciousness, reaching out different states. The reptilians were pushed away. They basically talked to the priestesses, to the women that were the priestesses at that time. There was a matriarchal society. And they learned all these. But later, when there was this shift and the males took all the domination of the earth, the reptilians were forced to live in the same way that the woman basically became slave of men. The reptilians are also considered gods from many ancient civilizations. We're going to see that they're also called the draconians. For example, in China, one of the gods or the deities, like the animal of the zodiac that includes all the qualities of the other animal, is the dragon. We're also going to see them in Mesoamerica, like with the feather serpent. We're going to see that many ancient cultures, also the Egyptians, worship the snake, or the crocodiles, or the lizards, or the dragons. So the reptilians work basically in all the earth. But when this changed and men took power, they didn't want that this knowledge continue, because it was so powerful and they wanted to dominate, to control. So there is something that is called the reptilian brain that we all have, and it stayed in us. And it is when we just live from our lower centers, from our first three chakras, because we live in survival, we live in fear. And meanwhile, we stay here living with those feelings, we're never going to be able to tap into our heart and then awake the intuition in order to be free. That's the way to control. And this knowledge was kept in secret and was passed from the Mesopotamian civilization through the alchemists, and later in the Greek society, also hidden, and then towards the Illuminati and to the New World Order. And this is a knowledge that is awakening, is now being public. But we need to learn and to be trained how to raise our Kundalini in order to be free. And just leave those states of fear and survival that makes us react. And that is what causes all this domination, all these imbalances, and that doesn't allow us humans to evolve. So in principle, it's not that there are reptilians right now on Earth, but their legacy or their knowledge is used not for good purposes, what we can say. All right.